Hello, welcome back to QuiltAddictsAnonymous.com and our t-shirt quilt tutorial. Today we're going to be marking the quilt and making a quilt sandwich, which is putting all three layers together. What we're going to do first is I have the quilt laid out on a banquet table. You can do this either on your floor or you can put two banquet tables together, but you want a nice flat surface to work on. And I have a couple of chalk wheels here. One is from Fons and Porter, one is from Clover. Either work just the same. One is yellow, and that'll show up on the dark fabrics, and then the blue one will show up on the light fabrics. And you can get them in all kinds of different colors, but those are really the only two you're ever going to need. So I'm going to position this so that I can see my cornerstones here. And I'm lining up my long quilting ruler from one cornerstone to the next, and that's my line to mark on. Sometimes it works a little better if you go from the inside of the block out. Make sure you mark those cornerstones too. And you're going to do that on all your cornerstones. So for this one we have to use the blue since it's on the white t-shirt quilt. And you just run that chalk line right along the edge of your ruler, and it gives you a nice clear line. And then there's 10 inches in between these two lines, so you're going to line up the 5-inch mark on your line that you mark through the cornerstones. And then you're going to connect those lines and mark it from there. And then once you've lined it all going in one direction, then you're just going to do it in the other direction to create sort of a cross hatching. And you're going to do this across your full quilt. First marking from the cornerstones, and always just line up those corners. And you might have to kind of shift it depending on where you're at, because sometimes everything didn't come together as square as we'd hope it would, but that's okay. Just reposition the ruler and make it fit. Alright, and then that creates this nice cross-hatch design, which we're going to use when we start to base the quilt. So now I can put these aside. We're done with that for now. And now it's time to make the quilt sandwich. And it sounds like a real funny term if you're new to quilting, but what a quilt sandwich is putting the layers together of the backing, which is what this fabric is, the batting, which is the fluffy stuff in the center that makes your quilt warm, and then your quilt top. So if it's for an actual sandwich, the slices of bread would be the backing fabric, and the top and the stuff and the good stuff on the inside would be the batting. And what I've done here is I've purchased quilt batting or backing fabric that is 108 inches wide, so that way you don't have to piece it. And then I bought it so that it's just wide enough to cover my quilt. And ideally you want to have a surface that's wide enough to put your whole quilt flat on, but if you don't, just drape it over your table, kind of like you would a tablecloth like this. And you want to smooth it nice and flat. You want it to be nice and smooth, but not tight on there. And then you're going to do the same thing with the batting. The batting is folded in fours, so I think it's kind of easier to unfold it and just kind of lay it flat where you want it to be. And then lay that half out and then just unfold it one more time. And what I'm using here is warm and natural batting. You can also use warm and white. And the reason why I like this batting for t-shirt quilts is because you can quilt up to 10 inches of heart on it. And we're not going to be quilting that far apart on it with the grid line that we marked, but we are going to be quilting a little bit further apart than most battings will allow. And that, if you quilt further apart than is recommended on the batting, then when you wash the quilt, the batting will separate and get all bunchy, and it just isn't good. So for this type of marking, make sure you use warm and natural or warm and light batting. And you want your batting and backing fabric to be 10 inches wider than your quilt top. And that just allows for any mistakes where the batting might bunch up or the backing might bunch up when you're quilting. So now that we've got the bottom 2 layers on, it's time to put the quilt top back on top. And I'm just trying to lay this out nice and straight using the edge of the table and the guide and getting that right in the center too, because you don't want to have run out of backing or batting fabric on the edge. And we got plenty extra on here, so we're not going to have a problem. And this is another time when you really just want to take your time to smooth out that quilt top. Because if it's not smooth now, then it's not going to be smooth when you quilt it, and it's going to bug you. Or at least it bugs me. Okay, so we've got everything nice and smooth here. And if you look closely, you see that when we did the marking, it made these nice little squares here. So you're going to take a safety pin, and you're going to put it in each of those squares. And that'll hold the 3 layers together nice and tight while you're quilting it, which is very important because you don't want these layers to shift during the quilting process, because that also will mess everything up and get it all bunchy. But you're just going to do this throughout the entire top of your quilt, and once you get the whole top that's within reach pinned, just very gently slide it over like this, and then re-smooth it out, and then start pinning again, and then do the same with the overhang on the top and the other side. But just do everything very carefully and make sure everything is nice and smooth as you're pinning, and you won't have any problems when it comes time to quilting, which I'll teach you how to do next week. So thanks again for visiting QuiltAddictsAnonymous.com. Stay tuned for how to finish your t-shirt quilt. We only have 2 videos left, and then you will be able to snuggle under your t-shirt quilt.